Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another detailed tropical weather update for Monday, May 26, 2025. Now, taking a look at the very latest GOES 19 True Color Visible Satellite Imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There will be a link in the description below this video. And what we have right now is literally nothingness out there in the deep tropics of the Atlantic, in the Caribbean, or in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's because we have a lot of vertical wind shear. That is these westerly winds that are blowing across the Atlantic with easterly flow underneath that, indicating that we have wind shear values of over 50 to 60 knots. On top of that, we have a lot of dry, stable Saharan air that is in place right now in the deep tropics. So all these negative factors are not allowing anything to develop right now. But once we go into June the 8th, lasting all the way through June the 15th through the 20th, there is a big opportunity that there will be some tropical development chances out here in the central northwestern Caribbean and, of course, across the Gulf of America / Mexico for anyone that lives along the Gulf here of Florida into Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. Here's another visual representation here from the National Hurricane Center with their analysis from 12Z this morning. We have a couple of tropical waves that we're monitoring right now. One is over the eastern Caribbean at sea. We have another one that is located around about the 35 to 40 degrees west in longitude. Both of these tropical waves do not have any chances of tropical development, at least over the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico / America over the next week or so. But as we get a favorable setup, though, each of these tropical waves will be able to generate enough convection, and therefore they might be able to develop once they get over here into the central northwestern Caribbean and the Gulf of America. With that being said, the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida is not expecting any tropical development over the next 7 days across the entire Atlantic into the Caribbean and the Gulf of America over the next week, or 7 days in this case, which is good news. So rest assured, nothing to be concerned about, at least in the short to medium term forecast, okay? But in the longer term, it's a different story. When we look at the Eastern Pacific, however, though, there is this area to really watch closely. Good news, the GFS model and other models have shifted back far enough offshore to now where Mazatlan and Puerto Vallarta are not likely to be impacted by this, but still some swells, some rough seas are expected to emanate off of this, and those swells coming in from the southwest. So keep that in mind. Any beach goers that are on vacation along the Mexico coast here, just keep that in mind. Lots of high surf, maybe some gusty winds and some heavier rainfall with some outer bands with anything that shows up there. Just keep that in mind. But otherwise, this has a 90% chance of tropical development over the next 7 days, meaning this is probably going to become Alvin more than anything as this moves generally off towards the west-northwest and northwest up to about 15 miles per hour. Now, with that being said, let's take a look now at your detailed tropical weather forecast, especially once we go into June the 5th and beyond. I'm getting a little concerned that something does develop out here in the central and northwestern Caribbean into the Gulf of America, where sea surface temperatures right now are even warmer than they were this time last year. This is concerning. This needs to be watched, okay? Even so, the models like the GFS are not showing anything in particular. We have to look at signals before we just go on to focusing on a deterministic model run, if that makes sense. So with that being said, here's a look at the forecast for this afternoon. We have showers. We got thunderstorms popping up this afternoon across Cuba, the mainland there, as well as Jamaica. If you're in Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic there, we're seeing showers and thunderstorms pop up this afternoon. If you're in Puerto Rico, just keep that in mind. Got some afternoon cloud buildups there due to some passing moisture with that tropical wave. And then if you're on the U.S. British Virgin Islands, Antigua, if you are on Anguilla as well, including for Guadeloupe, Dominica, if you are on Martinique, as well as St. Lucia, some of these other islands over here, Barbados, Trinidad, and Tobago. You got some showers passing through, but they're not anything significant. You might get about a tenth of an inch with each of these showers that pass on through. However, there is going to be a tropical wave that does approach the region as we go into Friday, May the 29th, 2025. And you can see it right here, this enhanced plume of moisture moving across the southern windward islands here, such as Trinidad and Tobago, as well as Barbados. Just keep that in mind, as well as St. Lucia Island down here. You're getting some showers and some thunderstorms. And of course, over Cuba, the mainland, we're getting more afternoon cloud buildups, some showers, some thunderstorms, including for Jamaica there. Honduras, as well as the Yucatan, looking pretty good for the most part. And this is going to continue to be a thing over the next 5 days where there is that tropical wave here, enhanced moisture, convection, thunderstorms, you name it. This is going to be approaching Hispaniola and as well as the Dominican Republic as we go into Saturday, and then eventually into Jamaica as we go into perhaps next weekend. This would be the last day of May, and then Sunday would be the 1st of June. So yeah, switching the calendar, starting off active for June perhaps there over Jamaica, over Cuba, getting some of that enhanced moisture. All right, and then going on beyond that, right now, going out to 10 days, still nothing showing up. However, we do have an area of spin here that might become a bit of an interest if it stays like this on the GFS. Would only bring in some enhanced rainfall to the Carolina coast of the United States, so the eastern or the mid-Atlantic here of North Carolina and Virginia, getting some enhanced rainfall perhaps for the 5th of June. And then that's really about it on this forecast model. Although, looking far out in time, and you're going to see images like that, and you're going to tell me that I am overhyping, David's overhyping because there's nothing out there. We're looking at signals, okay? I'm not focused on one particular model. This is the time frame to really watch is beyond the 9th and the 8th perhaps of June, all the way through about the 16th through the 18th, even the 19th of June, where we get that MJO formation over this area, rising motion, a convective coupled Kelvin wave. This is where this is going to help to cause instability. And with very warm sea surface temperatures here, lighter wind shear, that's why I'm a little worried about what might end up happening here in the northwestern Caribbean into the Gulf of America, where we have enhanced rainfall over this region. All right. Another way we can see this is looking at the relative humidity plot here. This is a look at that with brown colors illustrating really dry air in the deep layers of the atmosphere. So there's not much in the way of moisture across the mid-Atlantic at this time. And then if you look at the deep tropics, all this turquoise, blue, green colors, however you want to call it, that's a lot of moisture. The air mass is richly moist from about 700 millibars above the boundary layer all the way up to 300 millibars, indicating to me that there's a lot of moisture here. And this is what we like to use when it comes to forecasting the tropics. So as we put this into motion here, you can see just a lot of dry air out there. Okay, look at this. This is really unfavorable for any tropical development. However, we have a nice tropical wave right here. You can even see what the winds are doing in the lower levels of the atmosphere. They're coming this way, and then they kind of bend out like this. So here's a pretty good looking tropical wave in about 5 days over the Caribbean. And then as we move forward, that moves eventually into Florida, where it brings in enhanced rainfall. And you don't need a tropical storm or a tropical depression or a hurricane or a major hurricane to cause significant impacts. All you need is simply a tropical wave interacting with a baroclinic low off to its northwest. You get a lift, you get instability, and the ending result is you can get a lot of rainfall like you see here in Florida. Look at all that moisture hitting Alabama, Georgia, Florida area. that's going to cause some flood concerns eventually. And then beyond that, we have another tropical wave that you see here that is moving across the eastern Caribbean. This would be for the 6th of June. And this is the early signals, all right? See how all of this moisture is getting piled up down here in the southern or the southernmost portion of the Caribbean into the eastern Pacific? That's where our Central American gyre is going to originate from. And do we get anything that forms off of this? That is going to be a question, and that's why we look at signals. We look at the long-range forecast to tell us this. Okay, it looks like we are going to have some tropical wave formation and maybe a tropical storm or depression forms off of that, right? So therefore, we're looking at this. This is the European Ensemble Prediction System. Okay, all 51 members put together, and what we have here is some of those members do forecast, oops, let me zoom out that, do show some tropical tracks, okay? This is on the order of a high-end tropical storm to a low-end tropical storm intensity, with one member in particular here, okay, just one member, that's all it is, very low to no chances of that occurring, showing a hurricane getting very close to Miami, all right, within the next 15 days. So running all the way out to June the 10th here, that system shows it becoming a hurricane, while the Gulf of America has most of their tracks overhead, meaning that the chances here are for a tropical depression or storm to develop in the next 15 days are higher. And it's not just that. We could also see this too on the European forecast as well, which is really cool. I'm going to introduce this in my video today, and you can see the chances do increase as we go into June the 2nd all the way through Monday, June the 9th. Okay, over here in the northwestern Caribbean, you have a 20 to 30% chance of a tropical cyclone, which is a tropical depression, happening in your area, including the Gulf of America. Now, as we go forward in time, all the way from June the 9th through the 16th, this is why the thumbnail has it highlighted. The thumbnail that I made looks something like this, is because we do have elevated chances over the Gulf of America, over the Bay of Campeche down here, including for the northwestern and southern portion there of the Caribbean, where there is a 20% chance all the way up into this green area. That's a 40 to 50% chance of a tropical depression forming in that given area between Monday, June the 9th and Monday, June the 16th. But there's also other forecasts that we could look at here. And again, this is from the European Ensemble Prediction System. 200 millibar velocity potential anomaly, okay? And to make things more simplified in this video, because if I go into way too much detail, you guys will be like skipping over the video. We don't want that. YouTube doesn't like that. So in simple terms, your time is right here, your timestamps on the left-hand side of the image that I've circled in, and you can just this is a Hofmöller diagram, by the way. So these dotted lines going across are your timestamps. So this is May 29th here, this is June 1st, June 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th, and so on. Okay, your longitude lines are like this. They're going from east to west, so 60 degrees west is roughly where the Caribbean is, and 120 degrees west longitude is roughly where Texas, a little bit further to the east or west than that. But you get the idea. What we're looking at here, and the thumbnail is down here for reference, okay? And so what we have here going on, let me make my cursor a little bit bigger so you guys could all see this, is this green patch here is upward motion in the atmosphere. That's where we have more moisture that tends to pile up, where we get more vorticity. Our Central American gyre gets going, usually under this kind of environment. And so pretty much, and I want to make it clear here, pretty much after roughly speaking, after the 5th of June, all the way beyond, all of this green anomaly moves into the Gulf of America, into the Caribbean, and much of the deep tropics here of the Atlantic. This is going to allow for a lot of tropical development potentially. And this is the early June. We're going to be in hurricane season by this point, right? This is why we have to watch these things, okay? Any upward motion, lighter wind shear, really high upper ocean heat content with sea surface temperatures, you don't take your eyes off of tropical waves. You just don't under an environment like this. We could look further out in time too, beyond the 11th and the 12th of June. We could look back or look out all the way into the end of June. All of this green, all of this upward motion in the atmosphere. This is from the European Ensemble Prediction System, again, showing us the extension forecast, showing us really favorable conditions running all the way through perhaps the middle to the end of June. So yes, any tropical wave coming off of Africa may not develop right away, but if it tracks, most likely it will track into the Caribbean. That's where it could then make seeds and really develop very quickly. So maps like this give us a signal, okay? While our GFS may not show anything this far out, this is really important. This gives us a clue on, okay, the background state looks to become much more favorable. Lighter wind shear, more moisture in the atmosphere. Things come together for formation. And the one thing that doesn't help out at all and makes these storms stronger than they should be is very warm sea surface temperatures. This is a look at it as of May 25th, 2025. This is delayed always by 24 hours. There's no such thing. You can get these right on the fly, right on the current day, because this is all analyzed afterwards. And I will tell you what, right now, the northwestern Caribbean and the Bahamas are really, really, really warm. Far, far, far above average. Wait until I show you the Gulf of America on how warm sea surface temperatures are, / Gulf of Mexico, because some of you are confused still on how I should say that, if it's Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America. I don't want to upset anybody in this video. All right, and so we can see sea surface temperatures here are in the mid 80s with these purple colors like the Bay of Youth here in Cuba, as well as some of the Bahamas like Miami, Florida. Water temperatures are even in the upper 80s, like 87 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit. And while that might seem like, well, it's not 90 degrees at least, remember it is May 25th. Okay, May 25th, folks, we're in theory not in the Atlantic hurricane season yet. Not until June 1st. And we're seeing water temperatures that typically rival in late July into early August. This is very concerning. This really is. And in the Gulf of Mexico / America, water temperatures there are really, really, really warm. Anywhere between 28 degrees Celsius all the way up to almost 30 degrees Celsius right there in the loop current. So, yes, the Gulf is ready to go. It essentially is favorable for now intense hurricanes. It's just a matter of time when the atmosphere cooperates. And therefore, when looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies, the entire Gulf right now is unbelievably far above average. Look at this. The central Atlantic here across Bermuda, across the Bahamas, right off the coast of, say, Florida. Sea surface temperatures here are running 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above normal. That is pretty concerning. Therefore, I wanted to show you all this. This is over the Gulf of Mexico / Gulf of America. And we did it, folks. We did it, unfortunately. The warmest sea surface temperatures that we have had so far in the Gulf of Mexico and America this year, running already 1.272 degrees Celsius above average. And this is still warming up at a very quick rate, not just in your actual sea surface temperatures, but they're getting farther and farther and farther above average. I mean, come on, folks. Look at this. Back on May 12th and the 13th, we were barely above average, and look where we're at. Like, seriously, we are warmer than we were back in early April, where that was right around 1.9 to 2 or 1.2 degrees Celsius. We are now averaging at 1 1.27 degrees Celsius above the long-term average. And this doesn't look like the waters are going to cool down anytime soon. They're only going to continue to warm up from here, it looks like, because our trade winds, or the winds over the Gulf of America / Mexico, remain very light. Looking at the sea surface temperatures across the Gulf of Mexico / America, as well as portions of the Caribbean here from the University of Miami, Florida, sea surface temperatures are really, really, really warm. And it's not just the Bay of Youth right now over the western Cuban coastline there, but it's also along the coast here of Florida. Yeah, these are very shallow waters, and we understand how that plays a role in all of this. They're able to cool down very quickly and able to warm up very quickly, but geez Louise, folks. The 25th of May here, featuring sea surface temperatures already just in portions there of Cape Coral, as well as near Miami Beach, Florida. Man, these are warm waters. I mean, running 30 to 31.5 degrees Celsius above, or not above average, that would be pretty bad, but actual sea surface temperatures here in the mid to upper 80s. And it's only May 25th, okay? These waters out here are about 29 to almost 30 degrees Celsius in the loop current. And the Gulf right now, the entire Gulf is ready to go. And it's just a waiting game right now. At this point, when we get something that develops or moves over the Gulf of Mexico / America. Sea surface temperature anomalies are also very concerning, especially off the coast here of Tampa Bay, Florida, as well as Sarasota, including for the southern tip there, like Key West, Florida. Sea surface temperatures there are running about 3 to 3.5 degrees Celsius above average. They are warmer than they were this time last year. So if you want to think about a record, we're probably pushing for all-time record high sea surface temperatures this early, or this late in May, but this early in the hurricane season, which hasn't begun yet. And also portions of the Bahamas there, the Bay of Youth really running far above average, and across much of the eastern half of the Gulf of Mexico / America, running about 2 degrees Celsius above average, which is pretty alarming. Now, with that being said, here's a look at climatology for you all that are curious about where we are this time of the year and where we should be for this time of the year in relative to where the peak of hurricane season actually is. So we are here now, as you can see with the white writing and the arrow pointing down. We typically get 6 named storms out of the 76 years, something like that, 76 years. We got 6 named storms on this particular day, if that makes sense. But no hurricanes. So that's good. That's really good. But that's not to say that, in the future we could have at least one hurricane down the road. But comparatively to the peak of hurricane season on September 10th, out of the 76 years that records go back to 1944, there have been 57 hurricanes and 115 named storms, making an average of 1.52 named storms per year, if that makes sense. So basically, how you should use this tool as into saying, okay, on September 10th, there's pretty much a named storm out of the 76 years that records go back, and you have 115 named storms since then. You can expect a named storm almost every year, if that makes sense. At least a tropical storm, okay? And then when it comes to a hurricane, you typically get a hurricane out of 5 hurricane years, okay, or out of the 5 years during hurricane seasons. Those 3 seasons have a hurricane on September 10th, if that makes sense. Hopefully I did not cause any confusion, okay? But that's how it all works. So the odds are much higher that you get a major hurricane on the 10th of September than a major hurricane on July 1st, if that makes sense, okay? Because the peak of hurricane season, in theory, is September 10th. Alrighty, folks. If you found this tropical weather update really helpful, detailed, and informative, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm out a lot. hit the bell notification icon, hit the like button, and share this video with your family and friends on social media. When do you think we will see our first named storm in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of Mexico / America, or the southwestern Atlantic, or simply the deep tropics of the Atlantic? Please let me know what your thoughts are and what your predictions are for that in the comment section below this video. But until next time, I will be back with you more tomorrow with another tropical weather update.